Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Prime Time News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we go into your stories in detail, here's a look at the headlines for tonight.
President appoints three-member committee to investigate accusations of irregularities in the central bank's latest bond issue. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and former Navy Commander Somathilaka Dissanayake prohibited from travelling overseas. Sarath Fonseka acquitted of all charges in the case pertaining to harbouring of army deserters. Bribery Commission grills Vimal Weerawansa.
President Maithripala Sirisena says that the foreign policy of the current government is to work cooperatively with all nations in line with the non-aligned policy. He made this observation during a meeting with the UK Defence Secretary Michael Fallon on the sidelines of an official visit.
President Maithripala Sirisena, who is in the UK to attend Commonwealth Day celebrations as the chair in office of the Commonwealth, met with UK Defence Secretary Michael Fallon at about 5 p.m. Sri Lankan time today. During the meeting, President Sirisena stated that Sri Lanka needs the UK's support in the Human Rights Council. Michael Fallon, who praised the government's programme with regard to people in the northern and eastern provinces, also pledged the UK government's fullest support to Sri Lanka. The British Defence Secretary also inquired from President Sirisena regarding Sri Lanka's relations with countries like China and India, to which the President responded that there is great understanding between the two countries.
Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa and former Navy Commander Admiral Somathilaka Dissanayake have been banned from overseas travel with immediate effect. The order came after the Criminal Investigations Department reports on ongoing investigations to the Avangard case were taken up before the Galle Magistrates Court today.
Following the court hearing and consideration of CID reports based on investigations carried out thus far, the Galle Magistrates Court also suspended the foreign travel of a director of Avangard, Kitsiri Manjula Kumara. The CID also informed court that the former Navy Commander, Admiral Somathilaka Dissanayake, had acted as a consultant to the Avangard security firm. Meanwhile, the chairman of Avangard, Major Nisanka Senadipati, appeared before the Colombo Magistrate Court today, requesting permission for foreign travel. The Colombo Magistrate then ordered CID officers to present the letter drafted by the Defence Secretary and submitted to the Attorney General. The Colombo Magistrates Court meanwhile suspended the foreign travel of two members of the Board of Directors of the Ratna Lanka security firm, Major General K.B. Egodavela and Major Vijay Konbanda.
Former Army Commander General Sarath Fonseka expressed the following views with regard to the Avangard controversy yesterday.
With regard to the Avangard issue, the Secretary of Defence Unit knew that it was wrong and that its Security Service Unit was involved with the Ministry of Defence. Knowing all of this, he gave his confirmation. Even several army commanders were involved in this. They were given salaries of 1.5 million rupees each, so there isn't any doubt that there has been corruption taking place. An immediate investigation must be conducted in this matter. I'm personally not happy at the speed at which these investigations are being carried out. Apart from this, I am aware that army deserters in thousands had been deployed. This is illegal. There was a case filed against me for harbouring army personnel while they were on duty. They were false allegations. While such allegations were levelled against me, the Secretary and around 2,000 army personnel who defected from the army were carrying out this security service. This must be looked into.
Minister John Amaratunga expressed the following views with regard to the Avangard controversy and MP Duminda Silva at an event held in Hasalaka.
Avangard එක නීතියානුකූලද නැද්ද?
It is the court that must decide if the Avangard issue is legal or not. They are currently holding investigations. It is as a result of these investigations that Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the former Navy chief have been prohibited from leaving the country. This is an order from the court. Therefore, I think this court order came subsequent to a request made by the police and the investigative team in order to carry out further investigations. Thereafter, court and legal procedures will commence. Indictments have been filed in courts against Duminda Silva. When hearings begin tomorrow or the day after, they will remand him.
උසාවි දැන් හිතානිට උසාවි නඩුව පටන් ගත්තාම රිමාන්ඩ් පාරේට ගනි.
The Commission to investigate bribery or corruption recorded a statement from former Minister Vimal Weerawansa today.
Former Minister Vimal Weerawansa arrived at the premises of the Commission this morning. Director General of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, Dilrukshi Wickramasinghe, stated that statements pertaining to the assets and complaints of corruption were recorded from Weerawansa today. We were summoned to the Commission based on complaints filed by an individual who had identified himself as Attorney at Law Namal Rajapaksa. Accordingly, we participated in the investigation. Amid mounting accusations of insider trading in the latest bond issue of the central bank, President Maithripala Sirisena has taken swift action to appoint a committee to probe alleged irregularities.
In the latest development, President Maithripala Sirisena instructed the Secretary to the President, P.B. Abekun, from London to appoint a 3-member committee to investigate allegations of irregularities in the central bank's latest bond issue. Issuing a communique today, the President's media division noted that the President was paying close attention to media reports of alleged malpractice.
The committee should really be looking at a series of things. The first of that is that why was it that the requirement of the initially advertised requirement of 1 billion suddenly became 10 times that amount, and there was no intimation to the primary dealers. Secondly, the committee will need to find out if there was a nexus of collusion between the central bank and one or more primary dealers. And number 3, why is it that for the first time in recent memory, the governor of the central bank, Mr. Mahendran, was actually present at the auction room?
The Finance Ministry coordinated with the central bank in the past, but within a day of coming into power, this government scuppered that process and brought the central bank under the Prime Minister. So there is no correlation between what the Finance Minister does and the decisions that are taken by the central bank. Whose is this company? The company belongs to the son-in-law of the governor of the central bank. Now they are saying that the son-in-law resigned from the company some time ago. But this company is part of a group. We do not know if he has resigned, but even if he has, he is still part of the group. There is a monetary board which runs the affairs of the central bank. There has been no statement whatsoever on whether the approval of the monetary board was obtained. They are saying that there was an urgent requirement for 10 billion because there was no money to pay for projects that had been commenced. This is an astounding story. If that is the case, they should have brought it up when compiling the budget.
If the governor of the central bank has made a mistake, and if there is an independent judiciary and an independent police, then it will be investigated. It is as simple as that. During the regime of Mahinda Rajapaksa, all these institutions were under the president. You can say it needs to be done, but there must be evidence. The previous government was okay when it was done without evidence. You have become used to working under lawlessness. You have affirmed what I said.
සාකි හොයන්නෙත් නෑ මොනවත් නිකම් මෙයා මේ වැරද්ද කරලා තියෙනවා මෙයාට කරපන් කියන්නේ. ඒකනේ විධිමත් පරීක්ෂණයක් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කරන්න ඕන. එතෙක් මං හිතන්නේ
there must be a proper investigation. I believe that the governor of the central bank has a responsibility to step aside from his duties until it is completed. We are of the view that the governor of the central bank must be removed until this investigation is concluded.
මේ පරීක්ෂණය කරලා අවසන් වන තෙක් මේ දූරෙන් ඉවත් කර තැබිය යුතුයි කියන අදහසයි අපි දරන්නේ. යහපාලනය පිළිබඳ කිරිකලයට එකතු කර බොම බිඳුවක් විදියටයි අපි මේක දකින්නේ.
අපි පැහැදිලිවම කියනවා
We state clearly that if any irregularity or malpractice has occurred in this bond issue and if it's proven through an independent investigation, then we will bring all those responsible before the law and punish them. We will not protect rogues for any reason.
The complaint lodged at the Human Rights Commission by several civil organizations over the impact of the Colombo Port City project was taken up today.
The complaint was lodged by religious leaders, environmental organizations, women organizations and several civil organizations. The complaint was taken up today and representatives of the Port Authority stood as respondents. Representatives from the Central Environmental Authority, Port Development Authority, Coast Conservation Department and the National Physical Planning Department were also present.
We have made it very clear that first-generation environmental rights will cease to exist if the construction of the port city continues. The defendants of the case were the Port Authority. They accepted that the land reclamation was illegal according to the port's ordinance. Permission cannot be granted for land reclamation under the ordinance.
As we can see, there is a big issue. Certain powerful persons in the government want this to continue. Certain ministers want this to continue. What we are asking is what is going to be done about the damage already caused. My question is whether our politicians should be acting to continue with the destruction or whether they should be taking preventive measures against the damage already caused.
Former Army Commander General Sarath Fonseka was acquitted of all charges today in the case pertaining to illegally using army personnel for security. The case was taken up at the Colombo High Court today. The case was filed at the Colombo High Court against former Army Commander General Sarath Fonseka and retired Captain Senaka Haripriya De Silva, who functioned as his secretary. The duo were charged with illegally retaining 10 soldiers for their security after retiring from the army and acting to turn them against the state. High Court Judge Devika Dilirvera Tennakun decided today that the prosecution had failed to prove the allegations against the defence beyond reasonable doubt.
We
have achieved victory at one juncture today in terms of the false charges filed to harass us. There are 2 more cases against my son-in-law and his mother. We believe that the truth will be victorious in these cases too. We will receive justice. I believe the time will also come for those who engaged in savagery while looking at the planetary positions to come before court and prove their innocence to the country.
Meanwhile, the petition filed by General Sarath Fonseka regarding his seat in Parliament was also taken up today. The Court of Appeal today rejected the request made by an interim injunction enabling the petitioner to attend Parliament sittings until the hearings of the petition are concluded. Representing Sarath Fonseka, President's Counsel Faiz Mustafa submitted to court that the President had granted his client an unconditional pardon. He added that as such there are no legal barriers preventing Fonseka from taking his seat in Parliament. The President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Vijit Malalgoda, questioned what would happen if an injunction order was issued, and it was then proven at the conclusion of hearings that Sarath Fonseka has no legal right to hold his seat in Parliament. Responding to this query, President's Counsel Faiz Mustafa noted that if that were the case, the petitioner would act in line with the decision of court.
Professor Ashwin K. Sharma, a renowned Indian scholar, says that India needs to employ its advantage of historic and cultural values and ties with Sri Lanka. He made this statement speaking at a lecture titled Political Economy of Regime Change in India and Sri Lanka.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted today that he embarks on his visit to Sri Lanka with joy and the confidence that the visit will make India-Sri Lanka relations even stronger in the years to come. Furthermore, he tweeted that he would be visiting the Mahabodhi Society and Jaffna in addition to addressing the Sri Lankan Parliament during his visit. Meanwhile, Professor Ashwin K. Sharma, a renowned Indian scholar, says that India needs to employ its advantage of historic and cultural ties with Sri Lanka. He made this statement speaking at a lecture in Colombo titled The Political Economy of Regime Change in India and Sri Lanka.
India is at a vantage point in the sense the historical ties with India and the religious ties. But India has to take advantage of that, has to come in with a big presence. This is the right time to go in for improved relationship. Number one, the next general election is going to be in 2019. Right. So the central government does not have to worry about. Both the governments have to create kind of a situation, where the markets interact between the two countries. And that is going to be more lasting, that India does not have as much money as China has.
On the political stage, government and opposition representatives expressed these views at various events held across the island.
Just like we promised the speedy implementation of 100-day program, we hope to hold a parliamentary election. We will win a majority of the votes so that we can create a government that will consist of all parties and work in a different fashion. There is no need to have differences. We have complete faith in the president we elected.
It does not matter if it is 100 or 200 days. I do not think anyone from the public requested that an election should be held in 100 days. The public elected the current government because they favoured the program that was presented to them, so these promises need to be fulfilled. They have till April 2016 to do this. There is no rush to hold an election.
You have to sacrifice your wealth, your time, your effort for others. Recently I learned a good lesson on sacrifice. You would have witnessed that I went to give a statement.
කට උත්තර දෙන්න ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. මේ කට උත්තර දෙන්න මට යන්න සිද්ධුනේ තෝ වගේ කපාගෙන ඉල්ලලා කපා ගැනීමක් තමයි.
සුකුරාදා ආනන්ද විද්‍යාලයෙන් මට ලැබුණ ආරාධනා පත්‍රයක්.
Anand College sent me an invitation stating that a land which was gifted by former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa will be used to construct a sports complex. This piece of land will be vested by Karu Jayasuriya. The question I have here is as to how a land belonging to the Kotte Municipal Council can be given to Anand College. I have the original deed of this land with me. I want to tell the Urban Development Authority that if you want to do something for a school, you cannot steal one's land and give it. We do not agree to such corrupt activities. We will be showing the mistake done by the Urban Development Authority by showing the boundary lines. We will not allow Ananda College to construct a sports ground here.
A protest was staged today by the Federation of University Teachers Associations demanding the immediate resignation of the Vice-Chancellor of the Colombo University.
The group of lecturers who staged the demonstration outside the college house at the Colombo University commenced the strike from the office of the Vice-Chancellor. Demonstrators charge that they will continue with the protest until the Vice-Chancellor resigns.
We didn't accept the appointment of the Vice-Chancellor from the beginning. He was appointed to the position of the Vice-Chancellor despite the availability of several other deserving persons. We have been condemning this ever since.
Newsfirst queried as to whether activities within the Colombo University were hampered as a result of the strike.
We will never act in a manner that hinders the activities within the university. If any member of the association has to conduct a lecture, he or she will attend to it. All the faculties within the university have taken part in this. Though all of them are unable to convene at one point at the same time, we would like to note that the majority is here. To date, not a single individual has raised concerns to let the Vice-Chancellor remain in his position.
Meanwhile, the chairperson of the Federation of University Teachers Association said that FUTA supports the protest.
I believe the university lecturers are demanding the resignation of the Vice-Chancellor based on reasonable grounds. As members of FUTA, we will support the cause without raising questions. Thereby we render our support to their demands and we believe that the Vice-Chancellor should step down.
Last night, Action TV exposed that the Secretary to the Ministry of Education had acquiesced to a request made to the principals of 10 national schools to remain in their positions until disciplinary inquiries against them are concluded. Tonight on Action TV, we delve deeper into this issue.
While principals at several national schools who have acted in violation of circulars of the Ministry of Education continue to hold their positions with impunity and against a backdrop where persons have been appointed as principals in violation of the Sri Lanka Principal Service Constitution, it is questionable as to whether good citizens can be brought forth through the country's school system. In the recent past, persons who held lesser qualifications than their peers and had even failed the competitive examination for the principal service were able to secure positions as principals by holding protests opposite Isrupaya. The grading system for principals has not been introduced for naught. It has not been done so that the service can be sabotaged through politicization and thousands of cabinet papers. In the recent past, in instances where situations should have been rectified by the Public Service Commission, incorrect appointments were made. We are hoping to act in this regard and we will not allow such appointments to take place again. We will follow procedure, giving due place to the examination. We will follow the correct marking procedure and do this the right way. Do not have any doubts about that. We will not act in an incorrect way and neither will we allow anyone to act this way. We will not protect anyone. While the Education Minister's policy stance is to be appreciated, appointments that were made with cabinet recommendations cannot be annulled. However, there are instances where rogue appointments have been made, piggybacking on cabinet recommendations. It is the Education Minister who has the moral responsibility to act in this regard. There is an important point that the Minister would affirm in the process of cancelling these appointments. The fact is that the rogue letters of appointment have been issued by none other than the new Secretary to the Ministry of Education. This is one such rogue appointment letter. When an individual who issued rogue appointment letters while an additional secretary conducts disciplinary inquiries in line with the proposals of the accused, once being elevated to the rank of secretary, what can one expect from the education sector in the future? Minister of Education, this is over to you.
Unusual high tides were experienced in Thalwila Maravila this evening. Area residents claim that the sea came in about 100 meters inland as a result. Our reporter in Chilaw says the Chilaw-Nigambu road was also damaged by the unexpected high tide.
The government has made a public promise to introduce electoral reforms in the 100-day program. What is this electoral reform?
In line with the 1978 Constitution, since the general election of 1989, elections in Sri Lanka have been conducted under a system of proportional representation. Under this, seats are awarded to a party or an independent group as a proportion of the number of votes received. According to the proportional representation system, seats are provided at the district level. Prior to the adoption of the 1978 Constitution, the candidate obtaining the highest number of votes in their electorate was elected to Parliament. This system was commonly described as the first-past-the-post system. The proportional representation system was introduced after identifying several faults and shortcomings in this system. However, at present, several concerns have been raised against the existing proportional representation system. Accordingly, a parliamentary select committee was appointed in line with the notion on bringing about change in the electoral system. Our committee approved a mixed electoral system and presented it in Parliament. The report suggested that an electoral system combining the proportional representation system and the first-past-the-post system should be introduced, thereby abolishing the preferential voting system. According to the present system, election results are released based on 160 seats. The committee suggested that a voting system on 140 seats and 70 seats is suitable and that the national list of MPs should also be based on this. The cabinet recently approved a mixed voting system. A decision was arrived at following discussions between the President, Attorney General, Elections Commissioner and relevant factions to introduce a new electoral system which would be a mix of the first-past-the-post system and the proportional representation system. The Elections Commissioner has promised to expedite the process in this regard.
A practical solution that builds on the work of the Parliamentary Select Committee on electoral reforms is possible. What we need to do is to keep the 2-to-1 ratio among those elected first past the post and those elected on the basis of proportional representation, but make some accommodations such as slightly increasing the size of Parliament by maybe 10 seats, and also by building in some multi-member constituencies, because I think this is very important to address all the needs, such as keeping the small parties in Parliament, allowing increasing women's participation in Parliament, and things of that nature.
There is no calendar for elections in this country. Staggered elections were held. It is a distortion of democracy. This must all change in line with electoral reform. We need MPs who are accountable to their electorate. According to the present system, we have no such MPs. There must be a method implemented to carry out elections at a lower cost. There are small parties. They must be represented in Parliament. They must be granted an opportunity to enter Parliament based on the percentage of votes received by them.
The main reason for electoral reform is based on faults within the proportional system or the failure to appoint deserving individuals. It would also be suitable if they nominate 50 women under the nominations list instead of 30.
Whatever the form of amendments they bring forth, there must be an opportunity for minor parties to represent the people. There is much talk about this now. We do not know if this will be enacted under the 100-day program or not. The mixed electoral system must be enacted properly, as the minority will be benefited through it. We have presented proposals based on research carried out into this. What has been proposed is that 70% must be based on the first-past-the-post system and 30% based on preferential voting. If it is possible to implement 60% based on the first-past-the-post system and 40% on preferential voting, then we could expect favourable results from this. We are 500% in agreement with the electoral reforms. Even if there is a preferential voting system, the JVP will not contest that way. So this is in no way a threat to us. Electoral reform is not being postponed because the JVP is fearful. So what we suggest is, don't overthink this. Go ahead and enact what can be enacted now.
මොකක්වත් කරන්න හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. කරන්න පුළුවන් ටික දැන් වෙලාවේ කරමු. දැන් මූලික සාකච්ඡා නිකන් තිබිලා තියෙනවා. කියන්නේ මේ සංශෝධනයේට එනවද ඒක? නෑ නෑ ඒක වෙනම සංශෝධනය. අපි කියවනේ මේ දෙක පටලවා ගන්න නැහැ කියලා.
Well, that's a wrap up tonight's primetime news at 9. It was an absolute pleasure having you with us. I'm Stephanie Lazarus.
And I'm Shane Silva. Take care and good night.